Recording in progress.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rewind and Reflect, where we believe in the universal truth that nothing happens by coincidence and there are no mistakes. And we are here to share some of our life story and tricks with you. My name's Deb Miller.
Hey Deb, my name's my name is Susan Doyle.
You sure?
Nice to see you guys. Nice to see you. We are recording on a Monday, so Deb and I were on the phone just exchanging our weekends, and I started by saying I got my little teaser day today. It is gonna be 60, almost 65-ish today. The sun was shining when I went out this morning, and it feels a little warmer, so I'm in a really good mood. Can't wait to go
Good.
outside.
Makes all the difference, I'll tell you. It
No
really
kidding.
does.
No kidding.
So
Um,
this weekend, a couple things went on, and most importantly, it was our Kristin's 3-year sobriety anniversary
I
yesterday.
saw some things on social media, and it was just so nice. I'm so happy that I started following her.
I
So great.
know she's really cool. And
The strides that the progress that this woman has made in 3 years
oh yeah, it's
is
insane.
remarkable.
It is
Remarkable.
it is beyond remarkable, and I'm so incredibly proud of her. One of the things that again, I've talked about this in the past, when you take on a sponsee, probably 1 out of 10 will not necessarily, a lot will remain sober, but some might stop doing the steps or the work and not go to, they just aren't, they become uninvested after a while. So to have somebody who really does the hard work that's needed and is becoming, she was a situation of like, um, when, unable to, she was unemployable, basically. Like, she had no credit, she had nothing. And she just has
Yeah.
completely, she's working a great job now, full time, and she's just killing it. She's doing really good. So she celebrated 3 years. So because of her crazy work ethic, like, she worked a double yesterday, so we didn't get to celebrate, but we are going to celebrate on Tuesday. I'll pick her up, we'll go out to dinner, and then we're going to go to a meeting where I'll present her with her 3-year chip. And that's always amazing. I love those kind of things. And then yeah, it just, I think so much about sobriety and about how many people, Kristin is a success story, but there are so many people that are struggling. And, addiction and alcoholism is a family disease. When one person is suffering or in the disease, they are pulling usually most of the family down with them.
What are the
Certainly,
types of things that you'd say to the family when they're feeling as though they're being dragged down and logically, they know that they can't um do the work for the
mhm.
person, the family member, correct? And but they want to so badly. And those people end up feeling like failures. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was at a meeting on Friday night, and there was a woman who was like, I just dropped my son off in the hospital for the 9th time. And oh, her story was just heartbreaking. But here's the thing, and we say it over and over again, you didn't cause it, you can't change it, and you can't cure it, right? So you, as a family member, have to learn to disconnect yourself in a way that is incredibly hard, because you love this person, but they are not in a space mentally where they can get the help that they need. And I will tell you, what I have found through the years, mental health disorders are always, well, very frequently connected to substance use disorder. So even if there's somebody who is struggling with substance use disorder, but I have a cat here with me, so she's clawing at the chair. So I'm sorry about that. I'm not a cat
I didn't
person.
hear anything.
I'm here taking care of a cat. And anyways, so you got to get the mental health issue taken care of first, get them on the correct medication, and then that'll stop the ups and downs and the anxiety and the depression and the extremes that these people are trying to self-medicate themselves through. So once you get a handle on that, get the proper diagnosis, get them on the proper medication, then you can deal with the addiction in a much different way. But a lot of times there's significant mental health issues that are happening. And if that's not addressed, because that's the bottom line, then the addiction or alcoholism, their chances of getting clean and sober are a lot less if they don't get that.
Interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I suffered terribly with depression. And
Prior to your active addiction or afterwards? Coming
prior,
off and sort of like rebalancing the chemicals in your brain.
yeah, I first noticed that something wasn't right when I was about 25 or 26. And I ended up getting on some prescription medication, antidepressants. And it took me a little while to find one that really worked for me. But what happened was I ended up getting off of them because I wanted to get pregnant, and I was having such a terrible time getting pregnant. I felt like any kind of chemicals that I was putting in my body wouldn't be healthy, but that was not smart, because what ended up happening was with in vitro, you have to give yourself shots of hormones and all these different things.
Yeah.
And
It's
then
it's really aggressive.
it's so aggressive. I mean, I ended up producing like 25 eggs. I mean, like that's a lot. That's how much you're shooting into your body is. So anyways, so by the time I gave birth and I stopped nursing Hunter, my my chemical whatever went from really high to really low. And that's when I started self-medicating. I eventually did get on back on antidepressants when I got clean, because I knew that was long. I was really self-medicating.
And was that suggested for you while you were in your inpatient
Yeah.
facility?
So
I can't stop thinking how heartbreaking it is as a mother to drive your child to rehab 9 times.
so here's the other thing. When they're not in some kind of institution, whether it's a hospital or rehab, you're almost like relieved that they're there,
Yes,
because you're there like,
that I
okay, oh,
understand.
they're somebody else's problem, so to speak, like,
And you know that the phone's not going to ring in the middle of the night and say that they're dead.
yeah, or they're not
Yeah.
calling, screaming at you, screaming because they want money.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not doing this anymore, because it's easy to become an enabler when you're in that situation, because, the old saying, like, as a mother, you're only as happy as your unhappiest child, right?
Correct.
We
Yes.
cannot not take on the emotions of our children. So when one's unhappy, you're unhappy, even if
Correct.
or you're annoyed because you're like, oh, you're overreacting, whatever. It's an emotion that is not a positive one when your child is unhappy. So what will happen, and if anybody out there is listening that has a child going through something like this, all of these things that I'm talking about, maybe they can relate to, But I want them to understand that it's completely normal, because what's going to happen is they're coming at you. They're asking you, give me this, give me that. I need this, I need that. And that's their disease is driving them to do that, because they have this insatiable desire or need to get high. And they see you as the one thing that's blocking them from doing that. So they're going to come at you. And a lot of parents are like, they have created the boundary. They've gotten to the point and gotten the help that they need to create the boundary. But then the kid it can become harassment, and it breaks your heart, because you just want to give them whatever they want, just to give them some kind of relief, but it's out of their control. It's out of their control. So when the substance user is in rehab or a hospital or whatever it may be, they're being taken care of in the way that they need to be. So it's almost like, okay.
Right.
Until they pick up the phone and start calling you and saying, get me out of here. It's really, I mean, it's just difficult, but you got to be really, really strong and understand. Like, there was this thing that I saw on Facebook.
And they can walk out the door, because more times than not, they're adults. Like, you're not, I mean, unless you're not bound to be there, just because you walked in the door for a 30-day program or whatever, 14-day program, doesn't mean you have to stay there, which is the hardest thing, I think, is that person does have the legal ability to walk out the door whenever they want.
Right. Yeah, they sure
during
do.
that time.
And so if they go to, the best plan of action is to have them go somewhere where they don't know anybody. They can't call anybody to have them pick them up, or they can't, it's like, but it is heartbreaking for me to work with parents or siblings or spouses of these people who are just showing up like they are the biggest assholes in the world, because that's how they're treating everybody.
Yeah.
And then the parent and, the loved one is like getting the brunt of it.
Right.
So you have to just understand that it's the disease speaking, but then there comes a time where it's like, okay, I get it. This is a sickness, this is an illness, but it's not up to me, the loved one, to change. It's up to that person to change.
Correct.
And you have to just say, I can't do this for you. You have to do it yourself. You're hurting me, and I have to protect myself now. So here's some choices. And sometimes it comes to you kicking your child out without them having a place to go, and just saying, sorry, you're no longer welcome here until you get the help that you need. It just takes that. Sometimes it's unfortunate. And I know a handful of people that are very close to me right now struggling with their children like this. They're adult children. I'm talking kids.
Do you invite them to meetings so they can see what the other side looks like a little bit, with recovered addicts in recovery, telling their story, and just so they feel as though they're not alone?
Well, I tell them about Al-Anon, and I know that can be tough sometimes, because Al-Anon is, it's a support group for loved ones of substance users. But Al-Anon meetings, you got to kind of, same with AA, you have to find the one that fits you, because also people get like kind of turned off by Al-Anon, because it is a lot of people that are in a lot of pain and they're expressing that. And sometimes it's like, ooh, you want tools to be able to help you through. But a lot of times you're in these meetings and people need to share what is going on, and it can be very heavy. But then that's how you end up getting your support community together. Now,
do the Al-Anon meetings go by the tenets of the 12 steps?
Yes.
Interesting.
They do. Now, I'm not doing this intentionally to plug my book, but in my book, like, so people aren't, if I said to somebody who's struggling with their child, why don't you come to an AA meeting with me? They immediately get like, I'm not, it's like weird.
Mm-hmm.
People get weird about that when they're not in the program. So I haven't brought anybody to an AA meeting, but that's why my book talks a lot about the steps and what
Mm-hmm.
that person is going to go through physically and then mentally walking through the
Mm-hmm.
steps, what's asked of them. That's a good way for them to get it, to take a peek inside of what will be
Mm-hmm.
expected, because then you can support them.
Right.
You can say,
Right.
I know that you're working on this, that, or whatever it may be. But what I would tell them is whether you go to a support group like Al-Anon, or you find other people that are suffering with the same thing with their loved one going through it, you need
Mm-hmm.
somebody to talk to. You need support. You need to be able to, the worst thing you can do is hold everything inside. Because you do,
Right.
they're so manipulating sometimes that you end up feeling like it's all your fault, because they'll tell you it's all your fault. It's not your fault.
Right.
It's like a diabetic saying, I only have, diabetes. They want sugar or whatever, and they can't have it. And
Mm-hmm.
it's your fault because you used to share an ice cream cone together or whatever. It's like, it doesn't make
Right. No, I
any
get
sense
it.
at all. But
I get
it's,
it. They view the other person as the keeper,
yeah,
as the warden, kind of,
right.
so to speak, right? Yeah. Um, Kristin celebrated her 3 years. Did she have, has she mended some of the relationships, or was she just in an environment when she was actively using that those relationships are not healthy for her at all, and she started, basically with a blank slate when she went to rehab?
Well, and she'll tell you that the majority of the people that she used to run with have passed.
Mm.
Um, and she had one friend who she met in prison that she became really close to. And this girl ended up getting out, and Kristen was so excited because she was like, she was one of her really close friends.
Mm-hmm.
Got out, moved close to us here in Sarasota. I think she's in the next town over. She had to get a job, the whole 9 yards. But this woman decided that she wanted, she wanted to, I think she smokes weed or something, and maybe drinks, I don't know. But she was so, respectful of Kristen that she said, listen, I'm not getting near you. Like they talk, and she's like, but I'm not where you are. And the last thing I want to do is bring you over here. So, and I thought that was
Wow.
really cool. Yeah. She
That
was
is a
like,
beautiful, beautiful gesture on that other
yeah.
person's part. Yeah.
And Kristen is just like, her boundaries are very strong. She's like, I'm not interested in that. I don't want to, but
Mm-hmm.
she's like said to her friend, she's like, I'm always going to be here for you, but yeah, I can't be part of your life if that's what's going on, which is great. And then, so I think she was like the only one that she really knew from her
Mm-hmm.
past. And then she has a lot of new friends, but she keeps her circle small because she sees how
Good.
easy it's a slippery slope, man, but
Yeah.
she's got goals and she's working towards them.
So what are the top, I don't like to say top five, but what are the five things that you would say to a family member who is dealing with somebody in active addiction to do to sort of just help them, you know, you're not even dealing with it, but just sort of, maybe they're five reminders or maybe they're five tools to say to not take on the negativity that's going on, or live the addiction, with this person. Like, what would be the top 5 things that you would say to somebody just trying to basically save themselves from being dragged
Yeah.
down with all of it?
So these are just my own personal,
Mm-hmm.
I am not
Well, I think
part
your
of
own
that.
personal, I'm just going to interrupt you for a second. Your own personal has a lot of weight.
Yeah,
So,
but I'm not part of the Al-Anon 12 steps. So maybe they have like specific da 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 da.
but if
Um,
somebody came to you today, this afternoon, and said,
yeah,
I am, I'm in a I'm at a fork in the road. I have no idea. I have tried, blah, 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 blah. Go.
yeah. I would say to them first, you have to understand that you have to take care of yourself first. The person that you're dealing with is not healthy. Their brain is not thinking straight. It's so their behavior is not a reflection on you. It is a disease that they're fighting inside their head. Okay. So your first responsibility is to protect yourself because they will take you down. I would also be very clear that there's nothing that they can do to or say to change what is happening. I have said this many times because I have witnessed it and I have felt it. I have been on that other end. This disease is stronger than anything that can come at the person that's using. What I mean by that is there's no amount of love that's going to get them help. There's no amount of money that's going to get them help. There's no amount of people lose their children all the time because they can't stop. That's how powerful it is. I was going to lose my child because I could not stop. So you can't love somebody out of an addiction.
That's a really, really, really strong statement.
You can't. People come into relationships or they think they'll stop for me. If they love me, they'd stop. It has nothing to do with you. It is all what is going on chemically in their brains. And you cannot change that. You just can't. There's not enough love. So what your love is for is when when they get sober and clean, that's when the love comes in. That's when they need it the most because they are dealing with shame and a big fat mess that they've made. And they're thinking, I'll never be able to clean this up and I'll never have this. And that's when you flow love to them and support.
Mm-hmm.
But while they're in their active disease, there's nothing you can do. So set your boundaries. Boundaries are so important. And get a support group around you. You have got to be able to share what is happening, conversations. This happened this morning and I don't know what to do. And this is what he said, or this is what she did, and blah, 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 blah. So many of us hold that shit inside because we're like, oh, I don't want anybody to think badly about our child or our wife or our husband or our parents. We hold it so close, but the damage that that's doing to you inside, that stress can
Yeah,
literally kill you.
it can.
I
Yeah.
mean, it really can. So, I guess to sum it up, there's nothing you can do. No amount of love can cure the disease. There's nothing
Mm-hmm.
that you can do. You didn't cause it. When they're ready, they'll get the help they'll need. Unfortunately, sometimes they don't get that help and they end up in a jail or institution or passed away. That's
Yeah.
the reality of it.
What happens? Have you ever had a situation where, let's just take it, somebody's child, and the mother is on board with the 5 things that you have suggested, but the father, or vice versa,
Yeah,
or the father is not, the father is still enabling, and how does that kind of play out?
that's really
How,
difficult.
how would you change what you said to the parent that is at their wits, or just at, basically tapped out?
Right. So again, I personally would just always tell that person that they have to watch out. They have to take care of themselves. You
Mm-hmm.
cannot control another person. All you can do
Mm-hmm.
is control the way that you react to them. That's all.
Correct. Right.
So if the father is enabling, you do not, and like it, I do have somebody that's actually going through this, and the husband said to the wife, I am so proud of you for setting your boundaries and sticking to them. I just wish I could. It's hard.
Wow. Wow.
And it's
That's
not
amazing.
like, yeah, and kind of my parents were the same way. My mother had it. She's like, nope, this is, and my dad was like, no, but she this and she that. And it caused tremendous stress in their
Mm-hmm.
marriage. But my mother said, you do whatever you want with her, but I'm doing what I need to do to keep my brain in my head,
Yeah.
like, and so, I mean, that's just what you do. You
Mm.
have to take care of yourself. You're the only one who can take care of yourself. You
Yeah. And
can't do
it
it.
it pulls me back to the conversation we had several weeks ago about, you're no good to anybody else if your cup is empty. And
Yeah.
that's across the board. So even when, you're feeling as though there's no way that you can fill up your cup
Mhm.
based on what is going on around you. There's always a way. There's always a way to put something in that cup. It doesn't have to be completely full, right? But there has to be something there, some sort of reserve that you are not being continually, depleted from something that's empty.
Well, yeah, I mean, you
And
will,
taking care of yourself does that.
yeah, I mean, you exactly. You have to like I look at it like I've got these different buckets. And one of them is my
Mm-hmm.
spiritual bucket, one's my emotional, one's my physical, um, one's my, we'll call it intellectual, whatever, like things that I need to do to keep my brain working, all of this stuff.
I would put like reading a book in that bucket.
That's my bucket.
Instead,
Like,
like choosing a book instead of television, even if it's just for 20 minutes a day.
right, learning something about something else. That's
Yes.
like my intellectual bucket. So,
Right.
and then my other buckets are like service work, because helping
Mm-hmm.
somebody else always fills my bucket. Always
Yes.
fills my bucket.
Yes.
Not even if I'm not necessarily helping somebody, but I'm just listening to somebody. They need to
Mm-hmm.
talk, people just need, we are all, I'm going to get off on a little tangent here, but what I have learned on my spiritual journey, and a lot of things, one of them is, again, what we say, like the universal law,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing, the coincidences, nothing,
Mm-hmm.
no mistakes, everything is meant to happen. Even if the path that we're on, if we make a decision that we end up thinking, oh, that was a mistake. It's not a mistake. We just simply
Right.
take a detour off of our path
Correct.
because we're
Correct.
all going to the same place that we have determined for ourselves before we even came on this earth. So we can't make mistakes. We can't do, it's just not possible.
Correct.
And we are all energy. So
Mm-hmm.
if I'm listening to you, I'm flowing my energy into you. And then that, vice versa. And I want to lift your vibration and your
Right.
energy vibration because that's the whole purpose. If I lift you, you can lift somebody else, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I
But even
agree.
if I'm not, even just paying attention to somebody, making eye contact with them, saying hello,
Mm-hmm.
looking past them, saying, oh, I like that color looks nice on you, or whatever it might be. One little nice thing that's filling up a bucket for me. Even if I don't
Agreed.
get it back, I don't care because
You'll get
that
it someplace
feels,
else,
yeah, it's like
or you'll
that.
fill it yourself.
I'm feeling it myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm feeling it myself.
Um,
And you got to fill your own buckets. And
right. And, you know, it also ties into, you know, they can't do it alone. They need a community. They need support. They need, you know, their village. They need, you know, everybody. So, you know, all these things not coincidentally are tied into one another.
right.
And, you know, an addiction can be very isolating, correct? I mean, you can
Oh,
feel like you're the only one going through it, or you're it's the only, or you're, you know, it's just isolating. And by getting out there and making connection with, you know, just that, even if it's not a connection to other people who are dealing with addiction in their everyday life, just that connection is what we need to feel like we're not alone, even if
well,
they're not going through the same thing. Just, you know, I think it's super important. You know, I don't have the pedigree in that environment that you do, but I would put down as number six is find a community, find your village, regardless of whether these people are going through the same. It'd be great if they're going through the same thing as you are, because then you can share stories and you can relate to one another and you can have these exhaling moments together, validation moments. But really, it's, you know, it just goes to prove that you just can't do life alone. You just can't do life alone.
well, not only that, but the other thing I really feel strongly about is that people need to know that somebody's bearing witness to what they're going through.
Yes, yes, yes.
They just need to know, I see you. I I I am here for you or whatever. I mean, imagine, so just picture this. You got a husband and a wife, a mom and a dad, and they have this child who is very ill, um, in addiction. And they're fighting, the parents are fighting because one's different than the other. No nice words are coming back and forth to them.
Mm-hmm.
They're not supporting each other and saying, it's okay, honey, we're going to get through this. Here's a big hug. I love you, whatever. It's not like that. It is like
Right.
explosion after explosion after
Mm-hmm.
explosion. Okay. And then there's this kid who's kind of pulling the strings, and you love this child, but you very much dislike this child.
Right.
And you're like, how can I not love my son or my daughter? Um, you know, on and on, all of these really, these emotions that are opposite of what you should be feeling. Okay. And you're going
Mm-hmm.
through this, and it's months and months and years and years. And they're, you know, your finances are being depleted and all of this stuff. And you're so fucking ashamed because you're like,
Yeah.
my kid, like everybody's looking at me like my kid's a loser and a drug addict and this and that, and nobody's understanding.
Yeah.
So alone.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then one day you're sitting on a bench, just being like, I don't even know what to do. And somebody sits down next to you and holds your hand and gives you a hug, a
Right.
perfect stranger, and says, you're okay. I see you. I know what you're going through. Like, this person probably hasn't been hugged or touched gently in years since all of this. Like, just give
Mm-hmm.
people grace. Give them grace.
Yes. Amen.
Let them know that
Amen.
you see them, that you know that they're suffering, and it's okay, they're not alone. Because you isolate
Agreed.
with your family member. Nobody wants to tell everybody like my husband's an alcoholic and he's a dick and blah 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 blah. You don't want to share that with people,
Right.
you know?
Right. There's
And
shame that goes, there's still
there's so
shame
much
around
shame.
it. And there's still
So
judgment around it. And there's,
there
you know,
is. And then you're afraid that they're going to go like, well, why are you still there? Or why are you helping your child? You should this, you should that. Well, you don't
yeah,
want to be judged. It's not, it's like, so you end up
exactly.
isolating and being like alone. And that's the worst place
Right.
you can be, because there's
Right.
nothing wrong with, you know, every,
Right.
1 out of every 4 people have somebody in their family that has some kind of
Crazy.
substance use disorder.
That is insane to me.
And if
Insane.
people just came out and said, I need help, and know that they're not going to be judged, they need support and love,
Right.
it would be a much
Right.
different world.
Yeah, I mean, I think, first of all, so appreciate the conversation around it. So first of all, so proud of Kristin. I mean,
know.
I just met her a few weeks ago when she was on, and the things that she has said and the things that she has overcome and created for herself still resonate, still pop up in my head. And I'm like, wow,
I know.
I wish for myself when needed. I could only hope I have like half the amount of strength that this woman does. But it really today's conversation really just reminds me of, you never know what people are going through,
No.
behind the door or inside themselves or inside their family or outside their family or whatever. And, reserve judgment and simply give those that pass by you, pass through you, pass, your path, I should say, just have grace.
Yes,
And
because
know that your presence could really make a difference for somebody, and be open for somebody's presence to make a difference for you.
right, for sure. And let's remember that if somebody comes into your life, that's meant to be. That person is meant to be in your life, whether it's somebody that just smiles at you or whatever. Like every single thing is meant to happen. So be
Right.
open to it and be the light in others.
Agreed.
Sometimes we have to shine
Agreed.
light inside of ourselves and look at things that aren't perfect, and that's okay. But then we're gonna shine a light outside of ourselves as well. So
Amen. Good
amen.
talk. Good. I
Mm.
think this is really well timed. I think we really needed to hear, um, based on the conversation we had last week about what's going on in the world. And, they're universal principles. But, I think at the end of the day, people just need to know that they're not alone.
Right, absolutely.
Love
Namaste,
you. Amen.
everybody. Love you. See you next week.
Bye.